All right, good day. It is me, Derek, with No Dog Left Behind, on this fine Friday, September 10th, for episode 25 of the Everyday Dog Show. I am fighting through a little bit of a cold, so I've had to postpone a bunch of stuff, but my voice is coming back, so that's nice to be able to actually communicate verbally with people. But I haven't shaved that much right here, getting a little salt and peppery here. But anyway, today, I wanted to mention and broadcast some stuff, especially when it comes to leadership and my interpretation of it and from your dog's point of view. Before I get into that, hashtag live if you're watching this in the moment, or hashtag replay if you're watching it at a later time. Also, feel free to comment anything that you so desire about what you think about this content that I've provided. In any event, leadership. Basically, in every single private session I go to, one of the pillars and foundations of our training is me helping people understand what their leadership should look like to help their dog want to learn to listen to them. Dogs do not intrinsically care about our needs, in my experience. Some do, but they are the exceptions and the outliers, not the rule. So don't feel bad if your dog does not aim to please you at every which point, because there is like a myth out there that, your dog wants to please you. And I'm like, that's horseshit. Not in my experience. We can teach our dogs to want to please us, but they don't intrinsically just care from the beginning, with some exceptions, but they're infrequent. So what I want you to think about leadership is differently, in the sense of that we're teaching our dogs with many and consistent repetitions throughout every single day, our status with our dogs and our hierarchy as leaders. So there's two types of leaders. There's, the strong, benevolent kind, that is kind, but also like direct and clear and sometimes firm. And then there's tyrants who just simply rule by force. So I'm going to refer to a lot of things here as leadership and not dominance, because in my experience, dominance tends to be associated with leadership through more of tyrant means, by being more physically coercive, we'll say. Okay. So I want to be a strong, benevolent leader, because that's how I follow people the best. And in my experience, how dogs follow me very well. So anyways, what that looks like is just being more mindful of your day-to-day interactions with your dogs. Essentially, you condition them to want to listen to you, because they learn that if they do what you want, they get what they want. A little thing that people don't tend to know, and I learned somewhere along the lines, is that dogs want to find the fastest way to reinforcement, meaning they want to find the fastest path to them getting what they want for themselves. So what I do is, being aware of that, and I've seen it many times, I'll use it against them, but in a positive light. So what that means is, for example, a lot of leadership in the home. Okay, well, I'll take a step back. Why leadership is so imperative, and to kind of determine how solid your leadership actually is versus how you think it is how your dog responds around distractions. So most people have quite an easy time with their dogs in their home, where the dog's not, like, they're pretty good. They listen most of the time, not a big deal. But then you have company over, or then your dog's in the backyard and a dog's walking by, or your dog reacts to stuff through the front window. Now, some of these issues will not be corrected simply by having better leadership, but it will make it much easier for you to interrupt your dog and for them to listen with less effort from you and much faster. So that's why it's always the foundation of any kind of training process, typically, is I have to make sure people's leadership is in, clear, concise fashion. Yes, I absolutely believe in hierarchy, and I believe that you should be at the top of that. But like I said, I want to be a strong, benevolent leader, not a tyrant. So we are leaders, kind of like parenting children, right? So anyway, to exude clearer leadership to your dog in a way that they understand, what I'll have you consider is who's prompting who. And what I mean by that is your day-to-day experiences with affection. Is the dog coming up to you and like nudging you for affection, or just standing beside you and staring at you and then you pet it? But if you're busy on the phone and you don't pet the dog, then what does it do? Does it escalate? Does it paw you? Does it jump on you? Does it bark at you? And if that's the case, then your dog is prompting you, maybe 5 to 10 times a day to pet them on their timeline. Another prompt could be play. Your dog grabs its toy and it walks up to you and sets it on your lap, and then you play with it. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with doing these things. But if your dog isn't responding to you in the way that you want consistently, then your leadership probably could use a tune-up. So once again, dog brings me something. They're the ones who are dictating when the play begins. And like another example could be, for instance, the dog like scratches the door to go outside or barks or whines or something, and then you get up and you let them outside. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. And obviously, if you have a puppy, that's beneficial because you don't want the dog to mess in the house. But it's the accumulation of all these particular things where you might realize that the dog is prompting you for affection, for play, for going outside, for getting on and off furniture on its own free will, for bugging you for dinner at dinner time. And like all these things start to add up 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 times a day. Let's just say 20, the dog's prompting you to do something, and then you are kind and considerate, so you give it to them right away. And you're prompting the dog 3 or 4 times to sit before they go outside, or to sit before they get fed. So think of day after day after day after day after day of that. Your leadership, or sorry, the dog's prompting you and you prompting them. So you've kind of unintentionally created this inverse leadership hierarchy where the dog expects you to do things when it asks you to. Because if you think about it like with children, this becomes a bit more simple to understand and relate back to, right? Like I have a 9-year-old son. If I gave my son what he wanted, when he wanted, as much of it as he wanted, however he wanted, and then once in a while I ask him to clean his room, he's going to have a fit. Because most of the time he's like, Daddy, I want this. Daddy, I want this. Daddy, I want this. And I'm like, sure, 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 sure. So then when I say no, or I need him to do something for me, the child's combative, which can happen with dogs too. So there's a bit more to it than this, but what I want you to start to look at is your relationship with your dog from a standpoint of who's prompting who in these situations. So you're sitting there, dog walks up to you, paws you, nudges you, like don't pet them. Don't reinforce them telling you, give me the thing, and then you giving it to them. Like I said, if you're not having any issues with your dogs and your dogs are doing amazing in your home, you don't have to do this stuff. But most of the time when I do private sessions, people need to kind of organize their house before, we can address other issues. So the next piece of it is how do I prompt them as a human? And what that looks like is essentially if my dog comes up and like nudges me for affection, I'll just ignore it. I won't even say no or anything. I'll just like, if your dog is newer, younger, or you're just starting to implement this, essentially just step 1 is ignoring them until they walk away. So then your dog walks away and lays down. Let's say they were trying to nudge you for attention and you're like, you don't exist to me. And you watch TV, or you stand up and you walk to go get a drink and the dog's like, what's happening? And then it goes and lays down on the floor. Then you're like, you're going to wait 30 seconds to a minute. Then you can either call the dog to come to you for affection, which there you're just reinforcing come, or you can go to the dog and pet them while they're on the ground, which you're reinforcing calmness, relaxation, hang, chill out. Okay. But either way, you're reinforcing behavior that you want more of versus the dog prompting you, and you're reinforcing the dog bugging you for attention, for instance. So that's basically how you start to flip the script, is what I call it, and elevate your leadership and relevancy as a leader, I guess, instead of your dog being the one who's really in that. You're unintentionally conditioning them to be controlling. So it is so simple. It's not necessarily easy to implement because you have to change your own behavior, but it's very simple. I'm like, just be the one who prompts them instead of them prompting you. And that will significantly increase their interest to do what you say when you ask them to, because they'll start to associate, oh, I get what I want if I do what you want first. So then they want to work for you, and you're not kind of doing a power struggle with everything that you do, because they're like, I'll do whatever you want, because I know if I sit here, or if I come to you, or if I go over here, then I'll get something that I like. So anyways, what I would have you consider implementing and just testing it is, for the next 2 weeks, for example, you see, about flipping the script on affection, being the one who initiates it. And if your dog bugs you for it, you don't give them anything for at least 1 to 2 minutes after they've stopped and done some kind of completely different behavior. And then 2, you start to be the one who is initiating play as well, right? Because the same thing can happen where my dog can be annoying and beckon me and spit a ball out at me or bark at me until I play tug with them, that you start to be the one who initiates and ends play on your own terms. And then 3, going outside, coming inside, where you just wait till the dog's quiet. Like you let them out, you see them pee, you call them in. If you don't want to like wait to ignore them to calm down and not prompt you to get in. Those things will significantly, are simple and will really help to accentuate, your relevancy as someone that they want to look to. And what I've noticed happen many times is that the dogs just start staring at the people a lot more. And you're teaching them to voluntarily offer their attention on you because it works for them now. So anyway, I hope that brings some kind of insight into leadership. I'm much less concerned with like who's eating before who, like if, you got to eat before your dog eats or they're going to think they're the boss. I don't believe that, honestly. It's really more who's prompting who. So if my dog eats before me, but he prompted me, and then like he, in the sense of, let's just say it's 4 p.m. and my dog's accustomed to eating, and he goes and starts pacing around the kitchen and whining and scratching at some door where his food bowl is or something, and then I get up and feed him, then yes, I am reinforcing that prompt. That's not helpful. But if I feed my dog at 6 p.m. and it does nothing and is laying in the corner, and then I'm like, hey, come eat, and I feed him, and then I feed him and he eats, and I go and eat after that, they're not going to think that they're running the show. That's been my experience. Other stuff that I don't think is really necessary, or I've seen any actual anecdotal evidence that holds any leadership relevancy, is stuff like, the dog seeing you clean up its poop. I don't know if you ever heard this one, but I have, where it's like, you can't ever let the dog see you clean up their poop or they think that they're running the show. And I'm like, I don't know. I used to think maybe it was possible and I wouldn't do it. And then I started to realize that it doesn't make any difference. It's about who's prompting who in the moment. So I'm trying to think of some other, post them up in the comments, leadership myths, if you think of any that you think might be true or you don't know or you want me to comment on, and I'll tell you whether or not I believe that they're relevant. The food bowl one is kind of in the middle, in the sense of sometimes if you free feed your dog, it's not necessarily that the dog thinks it's running the show because it gets to eat whenever it wants, but it's just us giving away an opportunity to reinforce that we control the food by, being the ones who decide when the dog's going to eat, and we provide it to them without them prompting us. Because you could have better success with free feeding your dog and it being okay than if the dog prompts you every day and then you feed it. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'd be like, no, there's no, if free feeding is working for you and nothing's wrong in your home, go ahead, keep doing it. There's no issue. A lot of this stuff I mentioned is relative to people who are having issues with dogs. If what you're doing is working, who am I to judge that it's wrong, right or wrong? I don't believe there's a standard etiquette that every dog owner has to follow. I believe that people need to find their way to, the type of relationship that they want with their dog. Anyways, to not beat this too far into the ground as far as from a leadership standpoint, I will change the subject and move on to something else. But feel free to comment any leadership myths that you believe could be true, or you're not sure about, or you'd like me to consider dispelling, or my opinion about it. Anyway, another thing I wanted to mention was our From Chaos to Harmony program. This program is dedicated to specifically dog aggression cases. And it, the big three are dog to dog aggression in the home, dog to dog aggression with dogs outside of the home. Your dog is reactive on leash or intense off leash with other dogs that are not part of your household. And then 3 is dog to people aggression, where your dog is unsure, scared, fearful, threatening, all those kinds of things towards strangers or guests, or even potentially someone in your own household. This program is typically done on a private one-on-one basis, but we also do have a closed Facebook group called From Chaos, NDLB's From Chaos to Harmony program, where I have built out over 30 video trainings to complement all the private training that clients who are in these programs receive to ensure that they get to where they're wanting to go. This has been a very positive program and helped a lot of people. And I really wanted to emphasize the videos because it's nice when I can mention someone and show someone, but then they can watch videos after to further reinforce it, so they don't have to remember everything that I said. The other really high benefit of this program is that you get access to other people in your community that have gone through it as well and are working with their dogs, where you guys can help each other. So there's a community of 50 people, I think, or more in the closed group, all working with, dogs with challenges like that have gone through the program with me and follow my practices and guidelines and policies and so forth to safely create positive results. One of the biggest issues people have is finding anyone to work with, oh, my dog's not receptive to strangers, doesn't like them, but it grew up with all our social circles, so he's fine with them. But anyone new, I can't find anyone to work with, or no one that's willing to, because they've met the dog and they're scared of it. Well, here's your answer. This group, there's a handful of people that consistently reach out to each other and help each other work through these common issues through my processes and make lots of progress with their dogs, generalizing confidence with other dogs, generalizing confidence with people. So it's an incredible resource to find people that, are following similar processes and aren't just like, yeah, sure, let's do it, and then try to overtake the process and things go sour. Because just asking anyone for help is more challenging because you have to lead them very deliberately and consistently. So anyways, the closed Facebook group is just a bonus of that program. But recently I have actually developed just a virtual only option for those that are, outside of Moose Jaw, Regina and surrounding areas, to help them with their, dog aggression or dog intensity or dog reactivity issues, and accompanied with Zoom calls to go with, so you can get private specific advice and tailored assistance to complement the instructional videos. So if you have any questions or interest or anything about that regarding getting help for your fearful, threatening, anxious, aggressive dog, feel free to shoot me a direct message or comment here that you'd like to chat a bit more about that. And I can absolutely let you know how the program works and what it looks like and whether or not you're a candidate for joining. Anyway, another thing, puppy raising. Okay, so we have this really neat puppy raising program. Now, this is a volunteer basis where people help our service dog program, because we have No Dog Left Behind service division, to facilitate training psychiatric service dogs for recipients. And this puppy raising program is essentially where we have a volunteer raise their hand, join our team on a volunteer basis to raise a puppy through our standardization of processes for 4 to 6 months, where we give them all the tools, assistance, group classes, daycare. They just have to show up with the dog and, raise it basically as best as they can to our parameters to see if the dog can become a full out service dog. So that's super fun. We have 5 in training right now. Yeah. So 5 or 6. And then we've got another one coming on board later in the month. So we have everyone spoken for right now, but it looks like we're going to be getting another puppy in a couple of weeks or so. So we're looking to add another puppy raiser, someone who's considering doing so, joining our team for about 4 months or so, raising that puppy and just coming to some group classes and doing some Zoom calls and following our Puppy Einstein program for training. And it's just a super great opportunity to reduce the cost burden that our service dog recipients have to endure, because it's such an arduous, long process to train a dog. for psychiatric service. Excuse me. And it's costly, and not all the dogs work. So all that, there's a portion of dogs that just wash out of the program just due to them not being temperamentally suitable candidates for the work that we wanted. So there's a lot that goes into this, and it's really helpful when we can have people volunteer to and have a willingness to help someone in need and minimize the financial burden of acquiring a service dog from us. So if you're interested in that, same deal, shoot me a private message, and we can see if you could potentially be a suitable candidate for puppy raising for about 4 months when we have another puppy coming. But we'll also probably have a few more coming later in this season, like in the winter as well. So you could consider that in the future if timing isn't right now for you. But essentially, that's about it. I hope you found some value in this episode today. And like I said, feel free to reach out directly to me if you have any more specific questions relating to what I discussed today. And go ahead and join our closed group, The Everyday Dog Training Secrets, if you want to watch previous episodes of The Everyday Dog, or just access our guides, which have, I think, 8 separate guides of training, all the way from puppy stuff. You can get access to my book there. There's 9 trainings on puppy challenges, and there's a pile of other trainings. There's over 50, all for free, complimentary. The Everyday Dog Training Secrets. Join up if you fancy. Otherwise, have a wonderful Friday and a good weekend.